I'm Mary Virtue. I'm the chapter coordinator of the Victoria chapter of the Canadian Company of Pilgrims. And Daphne, Natiak, and I are going to be showing you some of the foods we've made today. Spanish foods, we're going to talk about them, explain them, and at the end of our talk, you'll be able to ask us questions. Would you like to talk about the tapas?
Certainly. So we've got an array of tapas here. Tapas, initially, you can get a tapa when you order yourself a beverage. Lovely red wine, doesn't have to be alcoholic. It could be a soda water, it could be a beer, and then you're going to get a tapa with it. So we've got some samples here. Date with cheese, chorizo, manchego cheese. Lots of tapas, as you can see, are on bread. This one's got salmon on it. Spain is a big fish country, so there's a lot of fish on things. Pulpo, olives, jamon serrano, very typical, and asparagus. The story behind why it's a tapa is, or one of the stories behind why it's a tapa, is that when you were served your glass of wine in the warm weather, it was topped with a piece of bread to keep the flies out, and then soon other things started arriving on top of that bread.
So where is a good place to have tapas on the Camino? Say, okay, let's go Camino Frances. Where would you go for tapas?
I would go to Logroño. There's a neighborhood there that has fabulous tapas.
Yep.
There in Leon, there's the Barrio Humido.
Oh, yes.
Tapas.
Yeah.
Santiago has lots of options. Any big city does. Madrid has lots. Everyone, there's lots of options. Tapas are usually not available until after 9 or 10 at night. So it doesn't always work when you're a pilgrim, but if you're a tourist in Spain, perfect.
Yeah, and certainly the tourist towns, Leon, Burgos, and Santiago, they seem to have tapas on offer all day long. Not the kind that you can get when you order a beverage, the kind that you get when you order a beverage and then you pay for the tapas.
That's true.
But I've had meals of tapas. Forget this intro to the dinner. I've had whole meals. They've been great.
Yeah, you can go from bar to bar. Often in some of the well-known tapas areas, like in Leon, every bar specializes in a different tapa. So the first bar, you order yourself a little drink, just a little maybe non-alcoholic beer or a little beer so that you can make it to all the other places. And you can have some kind of potato tapa in the first one. The next one's got shrimp. The next one's got cheese. A lot of people choose where they go for their drink, depending on what the tapa is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember being in Burgos. And there was one little lane that had probably 6 tapas bars that only served croquettes, different kinds of croquettes at each one. So we just went from one to another to another. It was great fun. Yeah, so I love talking about tapas and I love making tapas. And as I said, I have had tapas for a meal. In fact, remember somewhere between Cadiz and Sevilla, that's what I had for dinner one night. I had some sort of little beans or peppers and a handful of the almonds and a beer. And that was dinner because that's all the bar had. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about these good tapas. Can you tell us a little bit more? We've got the asparagus wrapped in jamon and again grilled, just sauteed in a frying pan, and they're yummy. And there's the serrano. Can you tell us?
So first of all, I'm going to talk about the asparagus. There is lots of asparagus grown in Spain. You're going to see it on the Camino de Santiago around past Pamplona, but you won't see it because it's covered in plastic because they grow white asparagus and you'll find it in jars and it's a delicacy. You often get served as a starter, like your primero plato, in a menu, a white asparagus with mayonnaise, which is very different from, for something we do. And then the jamon iberico is from the black pigs, which eat the acorns of the oak tree. That's all they're fed in the last, I'm going to guess here, a couple of months of their lives because it adds the striation of the fat and the meat. It's just a very good product to make a really good jamon. And so if you walk the Via de la Plata, you will see them. In fact,
Yes.
you'll have black pigs that you're walking right through them. When I did it.
Yeah.
So you'll see those black pigs. There
Exactly.
actually is a jamon museum.
Yes.
In one of the towns on the way.
In Monasterio.
Yeah, Monasterio.
Yes.
And the jamon iberico is what you see when you see that big foot of the pig, and it's on a holder, and they slice off thin pieces of the ham, and
you
that's
see
a
them
very
hanging
famous tapa. And you also see them hanging
in the bar
in
and
the bars dry.
hanging in the grocery stores.
And hanging in the grocery. Yeah.
So
more in the south, but you can find it everywhere in Spain.
Yeah. And do you know where you find them in BC?
No, where?
Costco at Christmas time.
There you go.
They bring them in November. So
they bake the whole.
You get the stand, the knife, and the jamon. So we've done that a couple of times, and it's really fun. But you do need people around. So during COVID, it was hard to get through. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this tapas, which is a smoked salmon spread with a pimiento on top, smoked salmon with capers and candied salmon. So this is our nod to BC tapas because you would not find this. You certainly wouldn't find the candied salmon in Spain.
No. Though I said there's a lot of fish in Spain. I think Spain is the second highest per capita eater of seafood in the world. Maybe they're the first. They have a lot of fish, but they have anchovies in a lot of their tapas. Usually there's a little anchovy on top of everything.
Okay, so what is this?
Oh, that's our chorizo. Again, very typical. So, I mean, what we would call a sausage made from pork. Pork is what most things are in Spain. They do have beef, but pork is the bigger product. Right. And then the cheese is the manchego, well-known cheese. So it's from sort of this part of Spain, sheep's milk.
Would that be the man from La Mancha?
Yeah, the man from La Mancha area, manchego. Northern Spain has a lot of interesting cheeses. They've got a blue cheese up there, a capra, but it's a goat. There's a cheese in this part of Spain, the one that's called that's the shaped like a breast.
Yes,
it's very liquidy.
La Tetia.
Yeah, la Tetia. Yeah. There's different cheeses
and
all over too.
Wonderful, and you can't get it here. I think because it's unpasteurized and because it's so liquidy. I have been to a cheese store in Victoria and asked if I could special order, and they said yes. But it's also a lot to get through. Again, it's one of those post-COVID things that you would do so you could have people help you eat it.
A good place to get interesting cheeses like that. I'm from Vancouver, not Victoria. So in Vancouver, Les Amis de Fromage. They have 2 stores. Also in Granville Island, Oyama Sausage carries a lot of Spanish cheeses. They make actually all of their meat products, but they make it in the same way as they're made in Spain. So they make fantastic chorizos. They make all sorts of different things. I have the blood sausages.
Well, the morcilla.
Yeah, the morcilla that I got at Oyama. Yeah, they have a lot of options.
Is that in the market itself? Being
from Victoria, it's inside the market itself. Okay. Oyama sausages.
So this, besides the manchego cheese, it has the chorizo on it. You can eat it raw like this, but what I like to do is take it sliced, just that thin, and then just warm it up in a pot until the fat is released. Pour off a lot of that fat, and then put in a teaspoon to a tablespoon, depending on how much honey, and let that just, this chorizo au miel is wonderful.
And then how do you eat that?
Toothpick. Toothpick, there's a lot of toothpicks. Tapas and toothpicks seem to go together. But, so that's another warm tapas. So croquettes, the asparagus.
I've actually often had, especially in the north and in Madrid, is chorizo, and it's cooked up in cider. So chorizo con sidre.
Oh, and this is the one where they take the bottle of cider,
that's the cider,
and they put the glass down here, and they go, and they hit it every time.
Lots of apples are grown in the north and make a really good cider.
Yeah, and they never spill a drop. It's amazing. So do you want to talk about the vegetarian?
Yeah, let me just make a bit more room
here.
here.
We know that there are a lot of people who are vegan, vegetarian, who walk, well, not a lot of people. There are people, vegan, vegetarian, gluten intolerant, walking. It's accommodating everyone, we hope.
Yeah. With the tapas, some places you're going to find something. So olives are very easy to find. You're always going to get an olive tapa. Here I've made a tapa with the tortilla, which has the egg in it, but that's also very typical. With the tortilla that we made earlier, This is cucumber with cheese and tomato. This is dates. Dates are very popular in Spain, and we've got some cheese in it. You could also put a nut butter in that if you're making that at home. Nut butters are a little hard to find in Spain.
So that would be, if you put nut butter, then it's vegan.
It would be vegan, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But
I've often done it with almond butter.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah. And then almonds, of course. Lots of almonds in Spain.
Okay, have we left out any?
Did we talk about where you get?
Oh no, we didn't talk about where we get the pulpo. So you can see the pulpo, and we've put the olive oil and the pimiento on top. I put a mild one. I haven't tasted this yet. I think
Very
I should.
good. Very good.
Delicious.
So this
Really
is
good.
from Superstore? No, you guys don't have it.
Yeah, it's from Superstore out in Langford, Millstream, whatever they call it now. Yeah. So
And it was already cooked
frozen,
and cooked.
cooked, and the thing is, it's not such a huge amount that you can't demolish it in like people coming over for pulpo. There'll be enough for everybody.
And it tastes like pulpo in Spain, I have to say.
It does. It's really
Get
good.
yourself a bottle
which one
of Ribero, which is the white. Spain, it's served in those little white cups that look like a bowl.
Oh, I have one of those.
Yeah, it's often
Somewhere.
fresh.
Yes.
This is not fresh, of course, but that's a nice combination too. Just a couple wines we've got here. So Rioja, very famous on the map, on the Camino, people know it. The Rioja area.
Yep.
I am drinking the Crianza Ribero de Duero, the Duero River.
Yeah, and the Duero River goes do and right through Portugal. Right through Portugal. Yeah.
There's a Ribero, which is a white, often served with the pulpo. We've also got a cava, which is a Spanish type of
Champagne.
Thank you. So it's called cava because it's not grown in the Champagne region of France. It's grown in Spain. Bubbly. And this is a Rios Baixas.
Yeah,
Another white.
Yeah. I think that's
our little selection.
Yeah, and we've got a house red that I think I found at the BC liquor stores. So
Lots of options.
most of these are available at the BC liquor stores. We've also got the typical ingredients that we use in Spain. So you're going to be using Spanish saffron, some dulce, pimiento. I've got the hot stuff, but I usually use the sweet stuff. This is the hot stuff. That tin's been around for a while. Olive oil, and of course salt. Sometimes oregano. This other little bottle we'll talk about later when we get to desserts. So for those of you who have walked the Camino, you'll remember the caldo gallego, which is that, we would call it kale here, but it's Bierzo. And some potatoes, onions, and a white bean. But what I made today was a potage of chickpea and spinach. And of course, it's got onion and garlic in it because no Spanish dish could call itself a Spanish dish without that. But you'll notice it's not a soup, it's a potage. Very healthy. The history of a lot of these soups in the northern region is that they were made from, so up in this region here, they were made from inexpensive ingredients, beans, lentils, greens from the garden, onions, garlic, and they, even though people can now afford more expensive soups, you'll still find a pot of beans in every Spanish household that's soaking overnight for the next day's potage or soup. The soups in the southern region are more of the gazpacho, more of the cold soups. The one from Granada, Samorillo, yeah, and it's a lovely soup as well. But they're cold soups down here. So, and with each of these, you have bread, of course. It's just a token bread. And you'll note that it's not on a plate because in Spain, you don't put the bread on your plate, you put it on the tablecloth. So, okay, so I'm going to move to the empanada.
Okay.
We'll just, whoop, there we go. Woohoo, it's a little hot. So this is the empanada. And last week I made an empanada that was atún. It was empanada de bonito, so a tuna one, typical of Galicia. The first time I had empanada was in Hospitalero many, many years ago, and now it's more common. This pork one is pork and veal, and it's also a Galician dish. It used to be just in this upper region. Now in Salamanca, and for years they've had an empanada that is, it's got a special braid on the top of it. And it has pork, so pork loin, and then it has a layer of serrano ham, and then it has a layer of chorizo.
Nice.
There is no tomato sauce, there's no onion, there's no green pepper, there's nothing. Pastry, and meat. So if you're vegetarian, don't eat that. So I was going to cut into this just to see if it's any good, take a look at it. And I made the pastry last week for the empanada de bonito. This time I cheated. I don't know whether I call it cheating. And I made the empanada, the pastry was just a puff pastry. I don't think we still have the box. But there it is. There, as you can see, lots of green pepper, lots of meat. Do you want to taste?
Yes.
Yeah.
Served hot or cold. Great snack.
Any good?
Fabulous.
Good. Okay, so that'll be eaten tonight by a number of people. Okay, now can I disturb you to talk about tortillas, which we all love?
So the tortilla español is here.
I'll move it to here.
Basically, a tortilla is eggs and potatoes. Those are the basic ingredients. There's often onions in it. Some of them have chorizo. Again, every place does the tortilla different. And tortilla is one of those things, you could get a little piece of it on a piece of bread as a tapa. You could get it in a piece of baguette as a sandwich.
Called a bocadilla.
Called a bocadilla. My experience with tortilla, it's served as a dinner. It could be a morning snack. That's where I know it from. On the Camino, you often stop for that 10:30 café con leche, and most bars have some tortilla up on the counter, and you get a big, huge slice of it with a piece of bread. Very filling, fantastic. We've decorated this one with the red peppers, which are also typical of Spain, roasted red peppers.
So yeah, so you know, I was going to say, I saw you make this morning. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you learned to make this, because it's the kind of thing when I got back from Spain, that was the first thing I wanted to learn how to make, because it just was such a good, comfortable food to have.
Mm-hmm. When I was on the Camino Primitivo, I ended up in an albergue with mostly a group of Spaniards, and rather than going out to eat, they wanted to cook in. So one of the women there took on making us a tortilla. She bought the eggs and the potatoes, and I stood there and, copious notes. And then a friend of mine that I met on the Camino, a Spaniard, when she was over here 3 years ago, she made it at my place. Again, I watched her. Like every time I watch people make it and learn little tricks that I didn't know about. And I have to say, I don't know if Mary wants this on the show, but I have actually once made it with leftover French fries. Definitely not typical.
But you said it tasted good.
It tasted pretty good. I mean, the potatoes in there, I hate to tell everyone, but they are fried.
They are fried. Yeah, I mean, they're basically
so
fried in a lot of oil. It's got a lot of oil, a little bit of salt, a little bit of onion, and a ton of eggs. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what makes it the comfort food. And certainly when I returned and kind of cribbed together some sort of recipe for this, because in 1999, there was no internet that was going to tell me how to make a tortilla. So I had met a woman in Hospitalero. Actually, she was an English woman. She and her Spanish friend were driving from place to place, and their husbands were cycling probably 100 kilometers. So they would drive with a packed lunch, so the guys could have a lunch, and then they would go off on their bicycles again. But so she had, English woman had lived in Spain for 20 years. She knew how to make a tortilla. So that's the way I learned how to make one.
Mary has whipped up a paella. It's a seafood paella. Paella originally in Spain was down in this area, Valencia. So Mary's comment 20 years ago when she was first on the Camino, there was no paella really in most other places unless someone had immigrated.
Yeah.
Now you can find it most everywhere on the Camino. Depending where in Spain you are, the ingredients are different.
Mm-hmm.
So the one Mary made is a seafood one. I've had one with peas and meat, chorizo, things like that.
Yeah, and I've had one that's just vegetables. But we thought we'd make this one a seafood because we have some vegetarians who will eat seafood, and there are some meat eaters who wanted this and didn't want the vegetables. So we're trying to, you weigh off, you look at your audience and decide who you're going to cook for today. So, and after you've had all this, if you're in most places in Spain, you'll be offered dessert. Some of you may recognize this. The flan. So this particular flan has 3 eggs plus 3 egg yolks in it, cooked on top of the stove and in the oven. It's a recipe I hadn't tried before. Got the recipe from Penelope Casas' book. You can see I've got a couple of there's 3 of her books here. She's considered the Julia Child of Spain, or the Marcella Hazan of Italy. But her recipes are great. She's passed away, unfortunately, but this particular Foods and Wines of Spain, my friend Doug told me to get it. I did, and it's the kind of book you just sit and want to read. Great introduction to the Foods and Wines of Spain. The other dessert that we have.
This is one of Mary's specialties. She makes these often, and they're fabulous.
Yes, but I made it again after my first visit, wanted to know how to make this tarta de Santiago. And I tried a number of different recipes and that I kind of conjured up from different books, none of which said tarta de Santiago. Finally, I found something that had flour in it, and it seemed to be good, so I would make a few different kinds. At that point, I had young children living at home. So in 2007, still had kids living at home, walking the Camino and coming into Santiago, I'm talking to a woman from Austria, from Vienna, and we are arguing about the proper proportions of things for the tarta de Santiago, and she said, no flour at all. So she walked me through her recipe, and this is now what I make.
So what do you use instead of flour?
It's all almond flour, totally almond flour. So it's eggs, and you beat them, sugar, and you beat that as well. Then you gradually add the almonds, a little tiny bit of salt, and some grated lemon rind. So
it's fabulous.
Yeah, so then, but it's not a tarta de Santiago without the cross. So
the cross of St. James.
Yes, a gift from friends of mine who were in Spain, who had tasted my cake many, many times. And I think they got fed up with the cardboard cross that I would put on top.
You can buy those crosses in Spain and Santiago.
There we go. There's a tarta de Santiago. So. And the other thing that you'll find sometimes when you have these kinds of desserts, because you've now only been eating for, 2 hours? Mm-hmm. It's now probably midnight, because you started eating around 10 o'clock. And it's time to bring out the liqueurs. So this may be served with a liqueur dripped on it. Could be, there's a coffee liqueur in Spain that's kind of like a Kahlua. So that could be dripped on it. Or there could be a yerbas.
Yerbas, and you often get what's called a little chupito. Often, if you're in a restaurant at night, maybe the patron, the host of the restaurant, will offer you a little what they call a chupito, a little sip of an herbal.
And when they offer this to you,
Alcoholic.
you say yes. You don't worry about the bill, because you'll find when you get the bill, there's no charge for this.
And it's quite strong.
Yeah, yes, it's quite strong. It's a digestif. And in Spain, if you have your cafe con leche in the morning, just as if you would have a latte or cappuccino in France in the morning. In the afternoon, you won't see a lot of French people having their cappuccinos or their grand creme. And you won't see any Spanish people having cafe con leche. You'll see the pilgrims having cafe con leche. So if you want to look Spanish, you order cortado, which is a quarter. And it's like the afternoon noisette in France. So it's a espresso with a little of foamy milk, just a little dot of foamy milk on top.
That makes me think about that often in the afternoon when people go out to socialize again, but it's not dinner time, between 5 and 7, they'll go out for a hot chocolate because there's good chocolate originally in southern Spain, chocolate with churros. But you can also get that in other places in Spain. That's actually, the chocolate and churros is breakfast, but that's what made me think of it.
Oh,
it's a packaged hot chocolate, when you go to the bar for between 5 and 7. And,
like a colacao?
Yes, colacao.
Ah, yes.
Colacao.
Colacao. We'd like to thank you very much, and I want to thank Daphne for coming over from Vancouver to help with all the cooking. But we've really, really enjoyed taking this trip all across Spain. We're trying out the different foods and bringing back memories of our Caminos. Thank you very much, and asante.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.